Imagine walking through the jungle and locking eyes with a gorilla. It stares back, curious, almost like it understands you. And maybe it does, because gorillas share 98% of their DNA with humans. They can walk on two legs, but usually move on their knuckles, almost like they invented their own way to walk. That famous chest beating, it's not just about fighting. Sometimes it's their way of saying, I'm in charge, or even just showing off. Despite their massive size, gorillas are gentle giants. They spend their days munching on fruits, leaves, and bamboo. Basically nature's bodybuilders, but all plant-based. And just like us, baby gorillas love to play. They wrestle, chase each other, and even laugh when they're having fun. But don't be fooled. These guys are insanely strong. A silverback can lift over 1,800 pounds. That's like bench pressing a small car. So next time you see a gorilla, remember, they're not just wild animals. They think, they feel, and in so many ways, they're just like us. Tag your Pookie Bear if you liked the video.
Today, I will be quitting my YouTube channel.
But I just gotta quit. It's just been too much.
Vision. I am quitting YouTube.
I will be quitting YouTube.
Today, I will... I'm obsessed with this Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. With vitamin B3 complex, it's really hydrating. My skin is visibly improved. Look at the Olay difference. It's Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash and Lotion.
On the lower slopes of the volcanoes, the stands of bamboo are already producing new shoots. Cansley must remain vigilant. His 46-strong family is within meters of the park border and in danger from illegal snares. For now, though, he eats. It's something a gorilla needs to do for at least 5 hours a day. Bamboo on its own is too rich for gorillas. They need to mix it with other plants or they'll get diarrhea. Bindweed is another popular delicacy. Campsby rolls it into a neat wrap before tucking in. But this is a surprisingly tricky skill to master. You must remember to keep the sticky bits on the inside.
Did you know your couch has the hottest slots in town? Tap into a world of endless excitement with Hard Rock Bet and explore thousands of slot games. Which game will be your favorite? Download the app and find out. Hard Rock Bet. Roll with us. Free spins and a 100% deposit match for new players on us.
The other spies are recording something truly groundbreaking. They've caught our gorillas singing as they eat. It's a chorus of appreciation. The first time this phenomenon has ever been recorded among wild mountain gorillas. They not only sing for their supper, consuming 40 pounds a day is bound to have consequences. They live in a semi-permanent state of flatulence.
The lips as sweet as candy, its taste is on my mind. Girl, you got me thirsting for another cup of wine. Got a bug from you, girl, and I don't need no cure. I'll just stay a victim if I can't be sure. I'm unbelieving that you're in love with me. Said I put on a feeling, and I am believing that you're in love with me. Yeah, you got such a beautiful voice, Coco. Yes, you do.
What happens if... Too soft, too soft.
But the other spies are recording something truly groundbreaking. They've caught our gorillas singing as they eat.
It's a chorus of appreciation. The first time this phenomenon has ever been recorded among wild mountain gorillas. They not only sing for their supper, consuming 20 kilos a day is bound to have consequences. They live in a semi-permanent state of flatulence.
A gorilla? Oh, okay, that's a smooth little way to open up a little banana. He said, why was he so gentle like that? How he's, okay, he got more manners than you. My neck, my back, my legs, bitch, all that. My neck, my back.
Does it do it? What the hell? Oh.
Casino players get 350 bonus spins and up to $1,000 back in casino bonus. So below
If you want to inflict emotional damage on a millennial, remind them that the Harambe kid either is or is about to be a teenager. In a couple months, it'll be a year short of a decade since the gorilla was prematurely walked off the census. And despite being named after a Swahili term for coming together, Harambe's death has been no less divisive. But the closer you get to the full story, with crucial context, the question becomes less of whether the zoo was right for turning the legacy of Bob Marley to a hashtag, and more of everything that went wrong to force the zoo to pull the trigger. Because Harambe's death was the right choice for the wrong reasons. Now hear me out, I'm not blaming the gorilla, in fact quite the opposite. Literally everyone involved but the gorilla ultimately failed him. And in about 10 minutes, I'm going to show you just how horrendous Harambe got done. The same 10 minutes it took for them to end him. Flashback to 2016. Eggs were $1.68, a light skin and Under Armours with no scoping entire teams, and Kanye was still Kanye. But he made graduate, all was good, until the 3-year-old canon event changed the course of mankind. On May 28, 2016, a mother took 4 children to the Cincinnati Zoo and got to the gorilla world habitat when the youngest boy said he wanted to go swimming with the gorillas. She went back and forth with him and then turned around to start putting kids in strollers when she heard a splash, followed by immediate screaming. Like any other human, she went to the railing, and that's when her mind took an indelible screenshot when she realized,
Cincinnati 911. Hi, my daughter's out in the zoo. Exhibit at the gorilla. There's a male gorilla standing over him. I need someone to contact the zoo, please. He's jabbing my son. I can't walk here.
In an unfortunate case of free will, the 3-year-old climbed the 3-foot fence, army crawled through 4 feet of bush, and before anyone could grab him and save the timeline, he fell 15 feet straight into the gorilla mode, where he was confronted by 450 pounds of adult primate. Harambe didn't seem especially aggressive, but watching him ragdoll the toddler likely took years off his mother's life. No one can say what was going through the gorilla's mind at the time, but we know what went last, because at about 4:10 p.m., about 10 minutes after the boy fell in, a member of the Cincinnati Zoo Dangerous Animal Response Team life-retired Harambe with a bullet to the head. And life as we knew it was never the same. The slain simian was mourned by millions, and memed by even more, to the point where there are people who use their right to vote on the corpse of a Kennedy gorilla, and that is the most political statement that will ever come out of this channel. But before we can judge what had to be an impossible decision, it's only fair to look at every angle, starting with the nature of gorillas. Gorillas aren't the menaces to society and skyscrapers we thought they were. Male gorillas are way more child-friendly than the average orang and chimpanzee. It's been said that the males that babysit more are considered more attractive to a tribe of hairy women. That's how they got their name. And being good with kids is more of a turn on than size, strength, or status. It's proven that guy gorillas on daycare duty will have 5 times as many children as those that avoid it, which is probably why they fight so hard for custody. You've never seen a gorilla hit the burners like that. But gorillas don't need Maury, they'll even step up for children that aren't theirs. A couple years back, the alpha gorilla of a group in Rwanda got sick, and since its sickness and health is a human construct, the 4 gorillas of the group left, abandoning not just their baby daddy, but their progeny as well. With the infants barely old enough to feed themselves, it should have been curtains. But this story had a plot twist. The sick male had a brother, Kubaha, and Unc stepped up and looked after them. They sleep in his nest, treat him like a literal jungle gym, and he single-handedly kept the next generation up. And Kubaha wasn't an anomaly. In 53 years of gorilla research, it's proven that orphan mountain gorillas that lose their mothers early on don't have a greater risk of becoming a statistic because the males will often step in. Not only did a different study show the exact opposite happens to baby chimps, monkeys, and baboons that get the baby treatment, even if they do survive, they inherit 0 social rank and virtually no chance of having children. It's the same story for animals like elephants, orcas, and hyenas. Being motherless is social cyanide, but not gorillas. Having one mom short of a full house, oof, has 0 effect on their social status, and it's believed that since mama gorillas often dip out before their babies mature, the males have evolved to cushion the blow. Plus, with chimpanzees murking monkeys, bush babies, that's bush baby, and even doikers for food, and even the good vibes tree hippie known to turn lorises into lunch meat, gorillas pretty much being knuckle-walking lawnmowers probably doesn't hurt Harambe's case. Gorillas go out of their way to avoid conflict, and you really won't see them beating on something weaker than they are, unless it is something to deserve it. But there's always a but. The rules of nature often change when you're talking about captivity. A wild orca has apparently never deep-pulsed a person, but those confined to a glorified fishbowl have a body count. Pandas normally mate, date, and procreate no less than the average black bear, but those in captivity often get less play than Helen Keller's Spotify. In captivity, mother gorillas will often reject their own babies, and it happens a lot more than you would think, so maybe the parental instinct doesn't apply as much to a gorilla behind the glass. Yeah, no, because if I had a nickel for every time someone's son ended up in a gorilla enclosure, I'd already have 2 nickels by the time player number 3 decided to keep the tradition alive and airdropped himself to the gorilla grotto. On August 16th, 1996, another 3-year-old fell nearly 24 feet into the Brookfield Zoo gorilla exhibit. In a scene you've definitely seen before, 8-year-old Binti Dwa climbed down to the boy, cradled him in her gorilla arms for nearly 60 feet, and gently placed him at the employee entrance where officials could get him. But what you might not know is that Binti was one of those gorillas rejected by her mother and was hand-raised by humans. Part of this raising meant her caretakers had to train her to be a mother once she became pregnant with the same baby riding shotgun while she rescued the boy. Part of this training included handing off her baby to staff for checkups, so there was low-key an argument as to whether this was an actual gorilla guardian angel or just an animal doing what it had been trained. Well, almost a decade earlier, in 1986, 5-year-old Levin Merritt followed the same script, falling into the gorilla pit and knocking himself all the way out. And 25-year-old Yumbo stood protectively over the boy, gatekeeping any other gorilla from him, and when the child regained consciousness and cried out, instead of matching his energy, the silverback calmly led his family to a small hut on the other side of the enclosure. But unlike Binti, Yumbo wasn't human-raised or trained in child care. This was actual gorilla free will that looked after the injured kid. So now you might be confused, because if you were on the fence on the Harambe happening, hearing about their social psychology and the gorilla history lesson would have surely kicked you onto the Harambe side. Well, every gorilla is different, so let's talk about the story of Harambe. Before he became a hashtag. Harambe was born in the Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville, Texas, May 27, 1999, meaning he had just turned 17 when he got sniped. Just like Binti, he was also rejected by his mother Caleb when he was only 3 weeks old. So zoo director Jerry Stone hand-raised Harambe, taking him home. The tiny gorilla was by all means his family. Jerry was actually the one to help Harambe's grandparents settle in after they arrived from Africa, and he was even there at Harambe's birth, cutting the umbilical cord. He changed diapers, got up at midnight to feed him. Nobody had put in more Harambe hours than Jerry. Jerry described him as a lovable troublemaker. He'd do things like throw water at female keepers and run away. He'd steal blankets just to give keepers an excuse to chase him. He'd even climb walls to get his keepers' attention just so he could fall backwards and make them catch him. By every account, Harambe meant well, but there was a point where Jerry stopped getting in the cage with him. Not because he was aggressive, but as he got bigger and stronger, there was a legitimate chance he could accidentally roughhouse Stone into eternal submission. But Jerry also noted that Harambe always looked after his siblings, fully embracing the big brother role. But on January 6, 2002, before Harambe was even 3, someone left chlorine cleaning tablets way too close to a space heater, causing a leak of toxic chlorine gas that suffocated the gorillas. Zookeepers immediately called EMTs, and by administering oxygen, they were able to revive 8 of the gorillas. But there were 3 that never woke up: Harambe's mother, brother, and sister. Yeah, Harambe got held by humanity long before Cincinnati. Speaking of which, almost 10 years later, in 2014, Harambe was now 15, and time came for him to be relocated to hopefully start his own troop. Jerry actually pushed for Harambe to be sent to Cincinnati. That way he could contribute to their breeding program. And in September, the gorilla named after a Bob Marley song was transferred to the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. And less than 2 years later, he would exist only as a statue. So there, now you have more background information than 90% of anyone who's given their opinion. Everything so far points against Harambe being a threat to the toddler, yet experts like Jane Goodall, Jack Hanna, and primatologist Franz Zaval all seem to agree the zoo made the right choice. And I'm with them. Harambe had to die. But why? Basically, it was the best of a bad situation. A lot of people say tranquilizers, but tranks don't work the same way they do on TV. It can take 10 minutes to take effect, even longer when the animals turned up. There was a story of 2 polar bears wandering too close to town in Churchill, Manitoba, and the first bear was slept and put in polar bear jail. Yes. But the second bear had no reaction to the same trank. If anything, it probably made him mad. But the real reason tranquilizing wasn't an option. This is Cha-Cha, Cha-Cha the chimp. Cha-Cha went full Caesar and escaped the Yagiyama Zoo in Japan. I want you to see what happened the moment he got darted. That man was a second away from becoming an Instagram reel. Animals don't understand the concept of anesthesia, but they do understand getting shot in the back, and in those 10 minutes to take effect, Harambe could have been the most dangerous gorilla outside of Hollywood. The next option would have been trying to have the keeper rescue the kid while distracting Harambe, but here's the thing. The moment the kid fell in, zoo officials signaled for all the gorillas to come inside. The 2 females complied, but Harambe he was also using free will. Clearly he wasn't in the mood to cooperate. The last argument is that Harambe wasn't hurting the kid. In fact, it looks like he was protecting him. I actually agree. I think the father instinct was doing a lot of heavy lifting, but here's the thing. Harambe was a 450-pound immature teenager who never had a kid or was trained for it. He could have killed that kid completely by accident. This isn't 25-year-old Yumbo. Young gorillas play rough, and one hard pull could rip his arm out of the socket. Too hard of a drag could bash the 3-year-old's head against a rock. Also, Harambe was clearly stressed out. The situation was a time bomb. The little boy freaking out and screaming, suddenly running away, or even just looking Harambe in the eye could have been enough to light the fuse. And speaking of time, don't forget, that kid was in gorilla custody for 10 minutes. Might not seem like much to you, but let it be your bloodline. 10 minutes will feel like and cost you 10 years. Now, what they should have done, in my non-professional online opinion, was get anyone who wasn't a keeper, paramedic, or zoo vet get him out of there, form a perimeter, something. I feel like all this could have been avoided if you didn't have a whole coliseum yelling on man. Silent game would have been golden, but at that point, it was too late for all that, and so the last option meant erasing an endangered species and future father. I don't like it, you don't like it, nobody's happy, but let's be real. Think about what the conversation would be if that kid became a chalk outline right there. Well, I can tell you, because it's happened. November 4th, 2012, Pittsburgh Zoo. Mother lifts her 2-year-old over the railing for a better view. Mother ignores several warnings and signs. Mother somehow lets child slip, and Maddox Durkosh fell, bounced off a safety net meant only for phones and cameras, and touches earth inside the enclosure. Problem was, the toddler landed with the African wild dogs. The most efficient pack hunters in Africa. The ones infamous for turning body to buffet before it can pass away. Look, I can spare you the details, just know it was quick, it was gruesome, and there was nothing anyone could do. The Durkoshes would file a wrongful death lawsuit against the zoo, seeking $300,000 because it can't put a price on life, but you can pay a lawyer to try. The family and the zoo reach a confidential settlement. The endangered dogs were all relocated, except for the one shot by cops, and the entire exhibit was repurposed for another endangered African predator, the cheetah. You know, for the longest I thought the zoo got screwed, but what I never knew was that in May of the same year, some of the same wild dogs dug out of their den and got the entire zoo put on lockdown. And as early as 2007, a member of the zoo safety committee explicitly warned of guests dangling children over the exhibit opening and advised them to install plexiglass to cover it. But no changes were made until a kid got eviscerated 5 years later. I don't think I'm letting the mom off, I got a lot of thoughts. And they're all explicit, but the zoo was liable and negligent, and it cost them and the dogs, even though common sense would have saved the day. But common sense would have been a godsend on Christmas Day, 2007, San Francisco Zoo. Look, we've all heard the story of Tatiana the venge-lusting tiger, so here's what we know. 3 guys, 17-year-old Carlos Sousa Jr. and the 19 and 23-year-old Dullywall brothers taunted a Siberian tiger. Pine cones and sticks were likely thrown at the tiger. The brothers' father admitted that the boys were drunk. Tatiana escaped, murked Sousa, and mauled the brothers until she was eventually shot by cops. And the Dullywall family settled a suit against the zoo for $900,000, and the Sousa family settled a wrongful death suit for an undisclosed amount. And both brothers used their second chance at life to get into several run-ins with the law, one including a drunken fight with police, and the younger brother would pass away in 2012 due to unknown causes. By every metric, they f***ed around and found out, and the 2 that lived came up almost $1 million off it. But 2 things can be true. The zoo screwed up bad because days after the attack, they said the moat Tatiana had escaped from was at least 20 feet tall. Turns out it was 12 and a half, a full 4 feet lower than federal safety standards. And if you know tigers, that is one of an oopsie. But also, after killing Sousa, Tatiana tracked the brothers down. But because cafe employees refused to let the 2 in, the Siberian Fury pulled up outside the cafe and mauled them again. It took 6 full minutes for zoo employees to realize that the brothers weren't drunk idiots screaming. They were drunk idiots screaming, but not lying about a tiger John wicking them. And because the zoo was under a Code 1 lockdown, it took another 5 minutes for zoo security to let police and fire units in. Those extra 10 minutes mean a lot when you're actively getting turned out by a tiger. And it probably would have saved Sousa's life. 2 things can be true. Tweedledee, Dim, and Dumbass pissed off an apex predator and earned themselves a nomination for a Darwin Award, while getting an endangered species past tense in the process. But the zoo was also painfully negligent in every aspect, especially since just a year before, keeper Lori Cummingen was mauled by the same tiger while feeding her through the enclosure's grill, and Tatiana's temper tore the skin off her arm, resulting in several surgeries, skin grafts, and California OSHA fining the zoo for safety violations. Lori would also sue, and would would also settle for an undisclosed amount. And after Tatiana's final act, the zoo would raise the barrier from 12.5 to 19 feet. So you see, the zoo and Harambe were screwed the moment someone spawned into his enclosure. And really, Harambe was dead the moment he chose free will. In fact, if that child would have died, Harambe certainly would have been past tense, all the gorillas might have been packed out, and the zoo would have been sued beyond oblivion. The zoo would modify Gorilla World by raising the outer barrier and loading up on netting and fencing. But the real victims here are Harambe, the child, and gorillas as a whole. And as much as I want to dump on the mom, well, the internet's kind of done that already, but kids are walking kamikazes. Not excusing it, because damn it, watch their crotch and the things that come out, but you don't think a kid will, till they do. And mama, I love you, I really do, but when I was about knee-high, my mom turned away for a second at the park, and when she turned back, she saw me on the other side of a pond leaning in. And if both my parents didn't go Usain Bolt and catch me before I fell in, well, we know how that story ends. I also almost got kidnapped. And I only say that now because my mother never lets me forget it. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Drink water, hug your mother, hold your kids. They're stupid. Rest in primate Harambe, and I'm gonna see y'all in the next one.
Weeks I have been waiting for this day, and it has finally arrived. We have the winner of our contest with the name of the baby with the Gladys Porter Zoo, and it's the baby gorilla. And we've got the baby gorilla right there, Dan. That's the child you just named. Harambe. Harambe is her name. Once again, what does it mean again?
It means pulling together, coming together, sharing and caring about one another.
And what is it, like Swahili?
It's a Swahili word, yeah.
Oh, wow. This is so fantastic.
Get ready to defy expectations with Optimum's 100% fiber internet network. The best, fastest, and most reliable internet. Tap into the ultimate power.
Don't let the baby face and lack of facial hair fool you. Us 90s kids are getting old. And one thing they don't tell you about getting old, that birdwatcher face really comes out of nowhere. You'll just be minding your own affairs, and then one day, unprovoked, you'll be like, that is an immaculate looking grackle. We laughed the whole time he was right. The bird is the word. And is he wrong? Just look at Buddy go. I could watch that for a couple of minutes without getting bored. This is an American woodcock, and I know what you're thinking. They go by a lot of names, such as the timberdoodle, the bogsucker, and the hokum-poke. As for the partridge plugwalk, woodcocks eat worms, and it's believed that a cute little woodcock waltz to us is a Category 7 disaster to any earthworms below, and the confusion makes it easier for a hokum-poke to poke 'em folks. They do their dancey dance in the name of murder. And clearly it takes some time for a woodcock to get the rhythm right. As you can see for this baby bogsucker, the bee is chasing them. They're just faster, but they're trying, and one day they'll get the motion, and that's all you really can do when you're a good woodcock. Now, if I've gotten older, there's one bird I've really grown to appreciate. This is a blue-footed booby. Now, I know what you're thinking. Let's address it. Why blue? We'll get to that, but the blue-footed booby is a seabird of the Sula genus, along with the masked booby, the Nazca booby, Peruvian booby, brown booby, and the red-footed booby. Because don't let poor media representation fool you. Boobies come in a lot of colors, but to be fair, you might have only ever seen blue. Well, the blue comes from the carotenoid pigments in the fish they eat. It's really no different from the shrimp that turns flamingos pink. And if you identify as Bugs Bunny, the carrot consumption can tint you tangerine. For bluefoots, the color actually correlates to their health, and by extension, how attractive they are to a partner. And there's no stolen valor in the system. Scientists did an experiment where the boobies starved for 48 hours saw an immediate decrease in the brightness of their blue. They took it a step further by taking a male booby, we'll call him a movie, that already had a female laying egg in his nest, and dulled his feet with makeup. His mate responded to the nerve by laying a smaller egg days later, one with less yolk concentration and therefore less of a chance of living. So yeah, the brightness of a booby means everything. It's a literal blue check that verifies their immunological health. Funny thing, you see the same thing with mandrills. Male mandrills look like they got rear-ended by a snow cone machine because it's a sign of social status. The higher the status, the higher the saturation. But a mandrill that gets regularly bullied and beaten will lose its cheek color. So that's why alpha mandrills look like they're constantly cotton candy constipated. The brighter the butt, the more you procreates, and brighter boobies get more groupies, which is why their courtship display involves birds flaunting their colorway. It's like red bombs with crit. It honestly looks like they're on a mission not to crease their sneaks, and the final act of this dance involves the movie presenting its partner with nest material. Even though blue-footed boobies don't even make nests. Nah, instead they thug it out on the ground, while defecating 360 until the dry product forms a ring around the nest. Why? Well, as it turns out, boobies have a poor sense of smell, but great visual memory. In a flock of up to 10,000, they recognize their nest by the specific ring of guano. And guano stands for gonna want to stay in that ring, but somehow that visual memory doesn't apply to their children, and only chicks inside the septic center get fed. Baby boobies that leave the center not only don't get recognized and don't get fed, they might get massacred by their own mother. Leaving the poop ring. That's not the only way a baby boobie can get inflated. This seabird practice is simplicide, because again, don't let the internet's unrealistic booby standards tell you otherwise. No pair of boobies are exactly the same. One's always a little bit bigger. And that's okay, it's totally normal, but it does mean the bust of your bosom will bludgeon and bully the weaker chick, often while the parents watch the boobie get murked like a vasectomy. It usually happens when parents are low on groceries, but sometimes the boobie will catch a body just because. The Nazca boobie will yeet its sibling out of the nest, even though studies have proven that boobies working together could easily feed both children. Alive? Yeah, it ain't all beauty being a booby. Like I said, unrealistic booby standards aside, they come in many colors like the red-footed variety, also from their diet, and they also use their feet game to secure a mate. Evidently, it might work too well, as not even a predatory coconut crab can resist getting grabby with an unsuspecting booby bird. But there's more than just crip-walking unmentionables in the world. There's also tits. I've definitely grown to appreciate these fleet of flying popcorn chicken. Really nothing like waking up and opening your blinds to a nice pair resting outside your window. Tits are a large family of passerine birds seasoned all across the world. Alright, let me stop waffling. Let's address the elephant in the room. In Eurasia and Africa, they're known as tit birds, but come to America and you'll find they're called
Pickadees! Pickadees!
find they're called So I get why you're confused. You got an Italian plumber with a Japanese creator using their American name. Understandable. That would trip up anyone. Now with the birds of the tit variety, how they got their name is actually pretty interesting. Back in the day, tit was more like tea, and tea was an old English word.
They don't know.
For little or smaller, even the suggestion of something small. Matter of fact, there was a time where it was used to reference a small horse or pony in the very derogatory. For example, no. Story of pasture with baggly tits, with ragged with age and evil at hits. Thomas Tasser. Translation: Tommy had a problem with them horses. But yeah, petit means little, and if you don't believe me, pardon me mon français, petit means little. So that is un petit paire de tits. Also in old-timer language, mus referred to bird, and the game of telephone turning mus into mouse is how there's now a group of birds known as titmouse. English lesson aside, when it comes to birds, there's a lot of tits in the world, and they come in all shapes and sizes. My favorite is the long-tailed tit. Look at him. He's like my final boss of bird bites. It's one of Europe's smallest birds because, you know, they tend to keep it pretty petite, except in Sweden. They got big ones over there. In fact, it's home to the great tits. At about 5.5 inches as far as tits go, they sure are. Can't leave the Americans out, so of course we gotta shout out sultry pars minimus, or the bush tit. And representing the aforementioned titmouse is the tufted titmouse of Texas. Obviously they're found in more than just Texas, but ain't no stops in alliteration station. But back to my preference, the long-tailed tit. And not just because of shape, although I do like them round. I don't really have a preference. They're all beautiful. He's just built like a perfect snowball. And something about watching them hang in the air is just satisfying. But also because they have a daycare system. Nature just couldn't let a long-tailed tit rot. So they have a lot of predators like owls, weasels, and even unnatural ones like domestic cats they can thank us for. The war on tits means their airborne cotton ball has a high nest failure rate. But the thing is, their family becomes compromised in the middle of their nesting season in May. Because tits usually is very much advised, especially for disease number 1. What's a Halloween video without a jump scare? This photo was taken just outside the Caribbean Bay Hotel in Zimbabwe of what appears to be a hairless baboon. The deep-pelted primate appeared to be an outcast, only following her troop from a distance, almost as if she had been rejected for her appearance. And according to a nearby vet, the most likely cause for this abandoned baboon's condition, mange. Mange is a nasty-looking disease caused by parasitic mites burrowing into the skin, where their collected feces can cause severe allergic reactions and an unbearable amount of itching. That's why the main calling card of mange is turning animals into the most down-bad version of themselves. And while the word mangy is usually an insult reserved for dogs, these mites can be a certainty from anything from foxes, to bears, to porcupines, occasionally birds like eagles, and many, many more. In fact, the legend of the chupacabra was more than likely jump-started by a severely mited-up coyote. And in 1996, there was an outbreak of sarcoptic mange that grieved a family of mountain gorillas in Uganda, even expiring one of their babies. The mites themselves aren't a death sentence, but they slowly weaken the target, making them much more vulnerable to infections. And they can easily spread, especially if you're a wombat whose burrow mates with a walking mite mosh pit. The mites are so persistent that in Pennsylvania, a black bear with more than 50% hair loss is considered a lost cause. And not only is it retired from life, it's also incinerated so the past tense bear can't possibly infect any others. And yes, mange is zoonotic, meaning it can be passed on from animals to humans, and when that happens, it's called scabies. To be fair, it's normally easy to treat in people, but those with weak immune systems or those taking immunosuppressants can find themselves gatekept from a life of comfort. There's also Demodex mites, which shack up in hair follicles, and even a couple species that make their home in the human eye. So yeah, mange just might be the most aesthetically upsetting ailment here. The polar opposite of the next disease, because where mange is visually visceral, zoochosis is almost purely psychological. You've probably heard of the condition where animals in captivity do the same thing over and over with no goal or purpose, almost like they're in a trance, and one of the most popular examples of this are those videos of elephants swaying back and forth. Except zoochosis is much more than that. Of course, you have your swaying and almost neurotic pacing around their enclosure, but the zoochosis signature also includes excessive grooming, personal punishment like self-biting and self-mutilation, turning puke into an infinite food glitch, and coprophagia, even in animals that wouldn't normally do it. But the disturbing part is, like mange, it's believed that zoochosis can also be contagious. If an animal is housed next to one exhibiting the stereotypes associated with it, chances are that same animal will too. This captive psychosis is likely triggered by a lack of stimulation and enrichment, and it's more common in higher intelligence animals, especially those that would normally have a wider range. Elephants checking both boxes is likely why 40% of captive-turned pachyderms show symptoms of zoochosis. Orcas are one of the smartest non-human creatures alive and can travel well over 40 miles a day for food. And almost a year ago today, in 2022, a captive orca named Hugo tragically resigned from reality after violently slamming into its tank wall until he suffered a life-ending aneurysm. And in 2005, a mother homunculus baboon groomed her baby so excessively that he looked like he came out the womb beefing with wizards. To be fair, we can't really prove that this was zoochosis working overtime, but bro got the Mr. Clean Cut. That ain't a fade, it's a flea. But the most popular and probably most depressing case of chosis was Gus. Gus was a polar bear that lived in Central Park Zoo for 25 years. At one point, visitors and keepers noticed that Gus would spend all day swimming in figure eights, sometimes for up to 12 hours straight. Keep in mind that polar bears can cover nearly 50 miles in a day searching for seals. Not only did the zoo spend 25 grand on therapy for the bear, Gus went on to make history as the very first zoo animal to be put on Prozac. Speaking of which, the 25,000 bones of behavioral therapy basically amounted to the therapist saying, "It be like that." This isn't an anti-zoo video or me trying to morally grandstand to y'all. I think zoos have the potential for a lot of good and a lot of bad. It's just that the bad can lead to a chronically pilled out polar bear. But wait, it gets darker, because with how far removed humans have gotten from nature, there's a legitimate fear that humanity as a whole could be suffering from zoochosis on a global scale. That joke about us being no different than ants stuck in a death spiral becomes less and less of a joke as time goes on. Do you remember the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend? You know, before his wife publicly neutered him and then smoked both his family jewels in 2-packs? Well, the post-apocalyptic movie started with a doctor attempting to re-engineer the measles virus in an attempt to find a cure for cancer, instead infecting 99% of the human race. A pretty good example of what can happen when humans try to play God with the natural order. Another example is what happened in Florida, specifically Silver Springs State Park. It's Florida's very first tourist attraction, famous for having a couple Tarzan movies shot there. And in the 1930s, tourboat operator Colonel Toohey was looking for a way to spice up his Jungle Cruise ride. So he brought in 6 three-seas macaques and had them placed on a small island in the park. And it was at this moment they f***ed up. Apparently, nobody involved was told that the monkeys could swim, and the moment they touched down on dry land, the macaques proceeded to swim out to the mainland. And following lots of multiplying without a calculator, there are now currently hundreds of rogue macaques, with a good number of them carrying a deadly herpes virus. Herpes B is an incapacitating condition that can cause severe brain inflammation, permanent neurological damage, and a permanent lease in a casket-shaped condom. Now, fear-mongering aside, the chances of catching it from a monkey are incredibly rare, but not rare enough to be zero. In 1997, a researcher was working with Arises when she was splashed in the eye by indeterminate fluids. Even after immediately flushing her eye out for several minutes, the 22-year-old died December 10, 1997, almost exactly 6 weeks after first being exposed. According to the Center of Disease Control, since 1932, there have been 51 cases of people being infected with the B virus, with 21 deaths and an 80% mortality rate for those untreated. That same fatal virus is currently being backpacked by up to a quarter of the hundreds of macaques running around the Sunshine State. Worse, it's believed they shed the potent virus through their saliva. So far, there's no known case of one of these Marion County monkeys passing off the virus to a human. The problem is, the monkeys have managed to lose their natural fear of humans, and there was even one incident where the park had to be shut down after a family was threatened and chased by an especially malicious macaque. It's the worst kind of invasive, and it's 100% our fault, and although the virus-peddling primates haven't caught a human body, it's definitely one of those cases of F around and find out. One of the most unsettling diseases in nature is a sickness that affects deer, known as chronic wasting disease, called so because it essentially destroys the animal from the inside out. In fact, this type of disease is a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, a name that literally comes from the fact that it causes several sponge-like holes in the brain. It's like the forbidden final boss of trypophobia, and it's caused by a single misfolded protein known as a prion. This prion triggers a chain reaction where the only outcome is a canceled life subscription, and the only thing the victim can do is wait for the sweet release of death. Here's what the endgame of a deer with CWD looks like. It starts with a misfolded protein affecting and altering perfectly normal proteins. It's almost like a cellular level cheese touch, and the moment it starts, it's already over. Step 2 includes the prions exploding in numbers exponentially and accumulating in the body, the whole time the deer, elk, or moose looks and acts perfectly normal. The deer can walk around with this disease for 2 whole years before the chronic becomes critical. Eventually, it escalates to the point where the prions manage to break into the blood-brain barrier, where they start destroying neurons, putting enough holes in the brain to get it cursed out by an octopus, and slowly wasting the poor, unexpecting deer. Deer with CWD seem unable to process anything around them, including danger, and if predators or playing freeze tag on the freeway doesn't take them off the senses, they die a slow and painful death to starvation as their brains shut down. The worst part is, the nightmare doesn't end once the deer does, since the prions responsible can exist in an area years after the victim, and can even be absorbed by plants in contaminated soil. That's assuming they don't just leach into groundwater. In fact, the only surefire way to eliminate a prion is literally that: fire. Except, it's not as simple as cremating a casualty. That'd be too easy. It's said that it takes heat at a minimum of 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 482 degrees Celsius to properly pack up a prion, and some sources say to hike that up to 1800 to be safe. But the part that makes prions one of the most horrific things not native to a horror movie is where they come from. It's believed there are 3 main factors that cause prion diseases. Genetics play a relatively small part, with only 10 to 15% of cases in people being attributed to them. The second, and by far most common cause, is the disease being sporadic. Basically, that just means that not even science can fully explain where they come from, but that it's like it happens out of nowhere. And the third is an infected deer contaminating something like a water source or a feeding station with body fluids and passing it off to the next. And remember, not only can prions insist on existing years after the fact, keep in mind that most infected deer look no different from any other, right until it's time to disconnect from interface eternally. That means that the 3 main causes of wasting disease are completely RNG, and that is remarkably terrifying. And it's not just deer that can get packed up by prions. There's mad cow disease in cattle and scrapie in sheep. named after the fact that it can cause them to compulsively rub up against things like fence posts until they literally scrape their wool off. There's even a human equivalent, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And while there's no known reports of a human ever catching CWD, specialists have warned that with the thousands of CWD-infected animals eaten by people a year, there's growing concern that the disease may eventually be transmitted to people. But maybe it's still a lot better than the last, and in my opinion, the most horrific disease in this video. Because not only is rabies one of the harshest death sentences nature can serve, it is 100% transmissible to humans. Rabies is said to bury nearly 60,000 people a year, and since the most common way to get it is through dog bites, it's the worst in places with a high stray population. Which is why India, a country that criminalized murking stray dogs, has about 20,000 names crossed off the census a year by rabies. And it's children that are especially at risk, with about 40% of deaths coming from those 15 years old or younger. Here's what it's like to be turned into a statistic by rabies. It starts with the virus entering the peripheral nervous system, usually through a bite. Then, it travels inside you through nerves until it reaches part of the central nervous system, or the spinal cord. From there, it's a straight shot directly to the brain, and at this point, you can start drafting your will because ain't no way. While you can treat the virus before it reaches the brain, once it does, you're almost guaranteed to become a WUS. The virus then multiplies, then spreads throughout the body, slowly killing you from the brain out. But the underrated and truly sinister aspect of rabies is how it seemingly rewires your brain for its own purposes. One of the telltale signs of rabies is a crippling fear of water, where just the sight or suggestion of it can cause incredibly painful spasms in the throat and larynx. At the same time, the virus attacks the salivary glands, causing excessive drooling and the foaming at the mouth the disease is famous for. And that's because the virus is most concentrated in the mouth, and swallowing or drinking water would dilute it, so the hydrophobia helps keep the mouth and all the nastiness inside as potent as possible. And that's not the only way rabies manipulates its mark. There's believed to be 3 stages of rabies in animals. You got the prodromal stage, and that's where the animal might start showing minor changes in behavior. And then you got the phase likely everyone associates with rabies, the excitative stage. It's been called furious rabies since it's characterized by heightened aggression and random outbursts of violence. Animals that would normally be wary of people, such as foxes, can attack completely out of nowhere with bites. And remember, being a water bigot just makes that bite that much more toxic. And then there's the paralytic or dumb stage, where the animal appears unaware and disconnected from the world around it. This is where you might see a normally introverted mammal show zero fear in humans. But don't be fooled, they're still liable to bite to serve the virus's purpose. The nightmare usually ends with the animal flatlining to respiratory arrest as its body finally just gives up. And your fate is almost no better if you're a human, since rabies has one of the highest KD ratios of any disease, even though it's also one of the oldest. It flexes a nearly 100% fatality rate, but nearly means there's still a chance. In 2004, 15-year-old Gina Giese contracted rabies after being infected by a bat, and the moment she started experiencing symptoms, she was, statistically speaking, a walking corpse. Dr. Willoughby, who had studied up on rabies, figured their last chance was to put the teenager in a coma in a last-ditch effort to save her brain and give her body a reasonable chance to fight off the virus. About a week after she was induced, Gina miraculously started producing rabies antibodies, and after Eurostepping death, she would go through the grueling rehab of relearning how to walk, talk, and even stand. Because even when you're lucky, it ain't easy being Giese. She became the first person to ever survive the rabies virus without a vaccination, and even went on to start a family. But don't get it twisted, the Milwaukee protocol that saved her has been used on 41 people, and only 6 have survived. The ones that do still run the risk of waking up severely disabled, which is the best you can do when negotiating with death, since that's exactly what treating rabies is. It's a horrifically debilitating disease, and even though it takes about 1 to 3 months to show symptoms after being infected, there have been cases of people walking around with the virus for 7 years. At the same time, if the virus manages to invade you close enough to your brain, you can easily be down bad less than a week after being exposed. With a virtually 100% kill rate, and the thousands that lose their lives to it a year, it's definitely one of the most unforgiving viruses out there, which is why the greatest basketball player of all time isn't Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or even Kobe Bryant. It's Manu Ginobili. Because during a Spurs Kings game in 2009, a bat managed to find its way inside the arena, causing everyone to immediately panic. Until the 6'5" Argentinian backhanded the bat and put it out of commission, and proceeded to help lead his team to a 20-point win, along with a victory by TKO against the bat. One man managed to potentially solo one of the deadliest viruses of all time, and he wasn't even a starter. And you'll never guess what day this happened. Yeah, that's right. Happy Halloween, and stay safe out there.
not easy being the one everyone counts on to keep your operation running.
Who is that?
My name is Shelly, cause I'm a shell, got no better.
I'm a fucking unicorn. And fuck anybody who say I'm not.
I got some more nerdy nuts. This one is a Dubai chocolate bar flavor. Right here are the things that are in this.
All I see is signs, all I see is dollar signs. Money on my mind, money on my mind. All I see is signs.
Little Andy, soft in your newborn skin, only one. Little Andy, will you return again? I believe.
If you have kids that are
I'm a father gentleman.
Rock lobster. Rock lobster. Motion in the ocean. Ooh-ah. His air hose broke. Ooh-ah. Lots of trouble. Lots of bubble.
Rule number 4. When you find a sister in some...
So I did the sketch of Bubble.
Hit me hard, hit me fast. Hit me hard and 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 hit me hard, hit me fast.
$8. You're spending $8 at...
Talkies are seriously intense. Talkies are seriously intense.
If your kids is obsessed with slime.
Hello everybody. The new piglet was caught. Yes, as you can see, she looks very similar to Robert, but she is not Robert. She will be named Alex. So here's Alex right here. Yes, I am very glad I posted you guys some updates. Yep, Alex.
I fell in love with some Lego. What did you want
Hi.
I'm not your boyfriend!
Hi, Chowder.
I'm not your boyfriend!
Hi.
I'm not your boyfriend!
Hi, Chowder.
I'm not your boyfriend!
Hi.
I'm not your boyfriend!
Hi, Chowder.
I'm not your boyfriend!
He's a pretty boy. He does it noodles. He just gets his face round and down.
Trying to keep them 'cause I found them. Let a hoe know I ain't motherfucking sharing. I could take you to the parents in the party. Plan a motherfucking wedding. You the type I wanna marry and keep it married. I put the ring on when you're ready. We play our fantasies out in real life ways. No final fantasy, can we end these games though? You give me energy, make me feel lightweight, like a bird of a feather, baby. We real life.
Look, it bothers you while you're meditating? I know a place where you'll never get bothered.
Yes! Good job, Haru! Don't look at me like that! You're making me...
Hip throw! Foot sweep! Throw down!
Why don't you try my dumplings? If not...
Huh?
recently, he released a song called Sugar High, and he made a challenge where every video that uses that song.
Hey, it's Grant, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that tangy Smokehouse barbecue sauce paired perfectly with that original filet.
Of sorrow and dread, they all said it, but again and again, I love, I love, I love, I love, I love. I'm hurting, I'm stuck in my bed, I don't know where to go, so I'll lay here instead with my symptoms, symptoms of sorrow and dread. They all said it was they, but again and again, I love, 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 I love.
The monkey chain! The monkey's fist! The monkey! The monkey chain!
All my fellas! All my fellas! All my fellas!
YouTube. Can y'all please pretend I'm famous?
It's Jesus!
My name is Shalom Harlow.
You better not mess with my pirate gang, or you'll be messing with Tiny Minion Man, Food Inhaler, 6-foot Puppy, Deep Voice.
Yo, you missed the first two!
This feels.
Yo, you missed the first two! It's Rigby! Rigby? Rigby? No, 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 no! How concentrated milk is made? Isn't it just a basic scientific process?
Concentrate.
These thumbnails cost 10,000.
Who would win? The Titan of Destruction, Godzilla,
Yeah.
versus Larry. Who would win? It was late at night and there was a shirt in corner that scared me.
Oh?
The closer I look at shirt,
I have the best camouflage, but I see you. No, I have. But I see you too. I don't get it. All I see is toilet paper. What am I supposed to be looking at? What am I supposed to be looking at?
Are you purple?
No.
Okay.
Are you purple?
Oh, what a cute kitty! Oh, what a cute kitty! Bro, it's not real. Bro, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real! It's not real! Bro, it's not real. Bro, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real! It's not real! Bro, it's not real. Bro, it's... Aww, what a... Aww, what a dog! Hey! Hey! Aww, Peppa is super kind to everyone. Nice! Peppa is super kind to everyone. Nice!
Focus on the future.
Peppa is super...
Focus on the future.
Dang.
But I'm sipping that kombucha.
Dang.
I'm the one that introduced you to the...
Dang. Huh? Dang. Oh.
In the night, come alive. Ain't it sweet? Ain't it... Focus on the future.
Dang.
But I'm sipping that kombucha.
Dang.
I'm the one that introduced you to the...
Dang. Oh. Dang. Oh.
In the night, come alive. Ain't it sweet? Ain't it... Focus on the future.
Dang.
How
We came close to a world-ending event. We did? We came...
Port.
Nice!
Rage.
Oh. 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 Bro. Oh. What the? What the? What the? Oh. At least you're not last. Oh. Oh. Snowman. Ah, it's in the other hand. In the other hand. It's in the other hand. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that hand. Yeah. Mama, can I borrow $600? No. Seems pretty reasonable.
Why does he smell?
Nice! Nice! Wow! Perfect! Amazing! You can only pick one. Choose wisely. Alright! Pick one? Choose wisely? Wait. Wait! Which one do I choose? Which one do I choose?